Welcome to Children's Learning Stories and Wellbeing. I will be discussing children's well-being and how it is connected to their participation in creating their learning stories. People's long-term well-being is fostered and supported by their ability to feel confident, to express their ideas, and have their voice be heard. This process starts in childhood through children's ability to voice their learning story. Teachers can support students' narration of their learning story by asking meaningful questions and not using exclusively observational methods to record students' activities. Teachers should guide free of judgment statements and launch conversations with questions and saying, for example, "I see and I notice," rather than saying what they like or dislike. Often assessment is based on results. Teachers review students' final work, but they don't often ask questions about the process or what the student experienced while recording information or completing a task. All learning environments should be approached from a linguistically diverse perspective. Students should be able to express their learning story in the language of their choice, and teachers can use this as an opportunity to assess the child's knowledge in their home language, and then use this information to incorporate it into teaching the school language or the primary language taught at school. To guide the construction of meaningful questions, I suggest the use of Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom's uses 6 skill levels, and each skill level relates to a verb. Learning is an action, so questions that are asked should be associated with these 6 skill levels. They are remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. The skill levels are ranged from basic to complex. Often assessments focus on 2 of the most basic, and those are remembering and understanding. These would be seen as objective assessments, and subjective assessments are more complex. I will be discussing both objective and subjective levels, but I will put more focus on the complex skill levels towards the end of the presentation. So now I will give you some examples of what questions look like, and we're going to start with remembering. So in this example, a question that you could ask a child in a movement class: what do you remember when you lifted the parachute in the air? What do you remember when everyone placed the parachute over them? This helps them make connections to the experience and to their learning environment. When a child builds a track for, let's say, a marble, they can create a better understanding if the teacher asks the question, "What did you observe when you put the marble in the hole?" Then extend with more questions. Where did the marble go, and why did it go this way? When asking a student to apply knowledge in a rolling paper project, a good question is, how would you show another student how to roll the paper? Why would you show them this way? Applying knowledge to relating it how they would show someone else requires the student to reflect on the process. In a painting project where a child is using multiple paint to pour on paper, a question to analyze the process would be, how would you explain the paint moving across the paper? And what would happen if you put the paper in a new direction? When evaluating students working collaboratively, a question could be, what is the best way to glue this project? By evaluating, students are making judgments about results and process. Children are often busy modeling activities from their daily life in dramatic play areas. A way to spark their creative thinking is, for example, when they are cooking, asking them to create a new meal they have never eaten before, and then what would they name their recipe? During a painting project, where the student is using multiple colors for painting, a question could be, why did you choose to use these colors to paint your object? And an extension question could be, If you painted this object again and had to choose new colors, what would they be and why? Now looking at creating again during an archaeology project where the student is using specific tools to break the plaster. You could ask the child, what other tools could they use, and could they invent new tools and draw a design of these tools? In a clay project where a child is using their fingers to make texture inside the clay, a question could be, what would happen if you used other tools to make textures inside the clay and give them an additional piece of clay to practice new textures in? Critique questions create an opportunity to evaluate group projects. Questions such as, how did you decide on the colors for your mobile? Or, what would you tell another student about this project? And recommendations for the future. The skill levels that were used to create these questions are remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. As educators, observations are extremely important, but providing students with the opportunity to be participants in their learning story supports the development of students' long-term well-being, and this starts with educators asking questions that enhance meaningful discourse between teachers and students, versus educators making assumptions about the child's experience.